Why do so many pianists experience pain and burning in their hands and forearms while playing? Why do so many pianists feel inhibited by a lack of speed and restricted in the variety of sounds they can obtain at the instrument? A key cause of excessive tension is playing with the wrist in an unnatural alignment. Angling the hand side to side, reaching for the thumb or fifth finger, or over-straightening. At the Well-Balanced Pianist, one of our 6 core elements is healthy technique, as exemplified by the Taubman approach. In this series of videos, our expert instructors comprised of Taubman teachers and body workers specializing in Feldenkrais and Aston patterning will offer helpful tips for playing with freedom and ease. I'm happy to introduce founder and director of the Well-Balanced Pianist, Dr. Teresa Dybvig.
Thanks, Benjamin. In this video, I'll show you 3 ways to find your natural side-to-side wrist alignment. I'm talking about this area here, the part of your wrist you would see when you look down at your hand while playing. You could say the inside of the wrist to the outside of the wrist, or the thumb side to the 5 side of the wrist. I always check from about an inch in front of the wrist to an inch behind it, so I see the full contours of the sides of the wrists. This place is important to pianists for 2 reasons. One is that it is the one place that connects the hand to the forearm and the rest of the body. The other is that we have a tiny, tiny comfortable range of motion here, side to side at the wrist. And to clarify, I'm not talking about movements that bring the wrist up and down. There's a much larger range of motion there. I'm talking about this place. The comfortable range of motion here is so tiny that for most people it's less of a range and more of a shape. Pianists pay a price, musically and physically, for pulling out of that shape. So I always advise my students to simply plan to maintain their natural shape here while playing. I'll begin with my current favorite way of finding our natural side-to-side wrist alignment. It seems to work faster and more consistently for people than anything else I've found up to this point. With this method, you get to know the relationship between 2 metacarpal bones and the forearm with the goal of maintaining that relationship as you play. First, we'll find the 2nd and 5th finger metacarpal bones. It probably works with other combinations of metacarpal bones. I like 2 and 5 because they're farthest apart, so they bring more of the hand into our awareness. All the long finger metacarpal bones run from the main knuckles back to the wrist, and we'll start with a 2nd finger metacarpal bone, which is easier to find at first on the side because there is a tendon that runs diagonally back to the wrist from the main knuckle that often confuses people. So turn your hand to the side and touch the 2nd finger main knuckle, the one that connects the finger to the hand, and trace the bone behind the main knuckle all the way back to the wrist. Then turn your hand to face down the way it will be while playing, and trace that bone back to the wrist from the top of your hand. That's your 2nd finger metacarpal bone. The 5th finger metacarpal bone is easier to find. There's no confusing tendon. Just trace the bone from the main knuckle back to your wrist. You won't need to trace these bones every time you work on alignment. You only need to trace them enough to be clear about where they are. Next, let's look at the way those 2 metacarpal bones relate to the forearm when the hand and arm are at rest. You'll need to see your hand and forearm in a mirror to get a proper look at that relationship. A full-length mirror is ideal. Now, I know from experience that many people are tempted to skip the trip to the mirror, and I want to encourage you not to do that. We need to see the hand and forearm when they are fully, leisurely at rest. And we all tend to change this shape when we move it around to look at it. So the mirror is your friend. You probably need to circle around a bit to get the view that you would see when you look down while playing. So here I don't have that view at all. Here I almost have that view, but I have to pull my forearm in front of me to see it. And if I keep circling there, I found that view. Now, when you get that view, look at the relationship of those 2 bones that you found, those 2 metacarpal bones, and your forearm. Please do not move yourself in any way to match the shape of my hand and wrist and forearm. We are all different, and molding a hand to match someone else's can cause such trouble. Look at the relationship between your two bones and your forearm. You want them to maintain that relationship at all times while you play, which may sound impossible, but even though the hand and forearm probably take on an infinite number of shapes as we play, those two bones can always maintain that same relationship with the forearm. Once you develop awareness of the relationship between those two metacarpal bones in your forearm, you're ready to begin finding your side-to-side alignment more generally by look and by feel. Here's how. To get to know the look of your natural side-to-side wrist alignment, you'll need to return to your full-length mirror, allow your hand to hang leisurely to the side, and move around until you get that view that you would have when you look down at your hand while playing. So look at this shape here of your wrist where the hand meets the forearm. And remember, the idea is to look at your shape, never to mold your hand to match my shape or anyone else's. So there's much to see here, but I want to call your attention to just one thing that often surprises people, which is that there's no straight line on the inside of the wrist. There's no straight line on the outside of the wrist. There's no straight line between the forearm and any bone or knuckle or fingertip. There's really no straight line here. As a matter of fact, this whole area doesn't conform to any geometric shape that I know of, which is why I so much like what my friend Allison says, that this shape is like a tulip. So the forearm is like a stem and petals flare out on either side at the end of the stem. Or you can look down and you can just see that your hand flares out on either side. I have students who cannot relate to the tulip at all, but they can see that their hand flares out on either side of the wrist. As your hands hang leisurely at ease at the side, you can experience the feel of your wrist in its natural side-to-side alignment. So here's a simple exercise for you. Just close your eyes so you're not distracted by their demands and feel what you feel in your wrist. If you don't have an injury that affects your wrist, and I hope you don't, you should feel nothing at all in your wrist. I call it the sensation of no sensation. We can feel the sensation of no sensation at all times as we play. As you build a consistent relationship between your two metacarpal bones in your forearm, you will feel the sensation of no sensation in your wrist more and more consistently, not only when you play, but throughout your entire day. Eventually, you will be able to simply ask for that sensation as you play. That's it for 3 ways to find your natural side-to-side wrist alignment.
Thank you, Dr. Dybvig. If you enjoyed this video, please click like and subscribe. And you can visit us at our website, www.wellbalancedpianist.com.